Hi. Okay, so today I have something on my mind, and I really wanted to talk about this because I woke up to a very interesting article that one of my friends had sent to me, actually. And this article disturbed me. Now, not necessarily because of the content of the article, but I guess it stirred something inside of me, and that's what I want to talk about today. And I guess collectively, what I would like to talk about is how we consume our information, how we get information. Nowadays, of course, it's largely through the internet, news, media sources online, as well as the television media, so CNN, Fox News, all the big corporate news media. And that's fine, but as a researcher, it's very important to do your own research and be independent. And the reason I say that is because there's a saying that goes, a little bit of knowledge is dangerous. And I agree, because if you receive a little bit of information, for instance, from the news or from an article or from a friend, and you accept that as fact, and then you decide that you're done exploring that topic because you have gathered the knowledge that you wanted from that topic, then I think that's a very dangerous position to find oneself in, because you're then more prone to spread, that information, and it's almost like looking through a peephole, and you can see some of the scenery, but you can't see the big picture. So, again, as a researcher, I want to see the big picture. I'm interested in the bigger picture. I'm not interested in these cherry-picked facts. So let me go back to what I started this video out with. And the article that my friend sent to me was, maybe some of you have read it by now too. It's been kind of all over the internet. This article that I printed out, basically, it's about the American Heart Association. I have the article right here. It says, the American Heart Association recently released a report advising against the use of coconut oil. And so that's why my friend emailed this to me, because he knows that I consume coconut oil on a daily basis. So he was saying, oh God, have you heard this? And I said, no, I'm going to read it and I'll get back to you. So I read it and I have some thoughts. So this article, you can Google it. You just type in AHA, American Heart Association coconut oil, and this article will come up. It's been all the buzz today. It says, in fact, 82% of the fat in coconut oil is saturated fat, according to the data, far beyond butter, beef fat, and pork lard. So that sounds alarming indeed, if I were to just read this. It says, because coconut oil increases LDL cholesterol, a cause of cardiovascular disease, and has no known offsetting favorable effects. Interesting. We advise against the use of coconut oil, the American Heart Association said. Goes on to say, Frank Sachs, lead author on the report, said he has no idea why people think coconut oil is healthy. It's almost 100% fat, he says. The AHA recommends eating no more than 6% of saturated fat as part of total daily calories for those who need lower cholesterol. Okay, so I have many problems with this article, and I won't go into a huge rant because I could go on and on and on about this. This article disturbed me, as I said in the beginning, because it's a very good example of people are going to read this, the general public is going to read this, and whether or not you're a fan of coconut oil, they're going to be scared off by coconut oil, and then they're going to go to work or go to school or see their friends and say, did you hear that coconut oil is bad? American Heart Association says stay away. Do not consume coconut oil. It raises LDL cholesterol and triglycerides, and it leads to cardiovascular disease. That's what the study said. That's not the big picture. Studies like this, and this study specifically, these studies are produced by companies, corporations like the American Heart Association, in this case. They're back-funded by people, and I'm going to get back to this because it's so convoluted. It's very convoluted. They're funded by either the corporation themselves or people who push the agenda that supports the outcome of the study. In other words, it's worse than cherry picking data. They are creating data, okay? So they're creating this data and then publishing it for mass consumption. And it's being consumed by the public and spread. And then the misinformation gets spread. And that's how we start living in an echo chamber. And an echo chamber is where people start seeking out information and studies, valid studies. It has to be true because it's on the internet, right? And it's from the American Heart Association and this Frank Sachs, which I will get back to later, but it's worse than cherry picking because they're creating their own data and then publishing it as fact. The study says, well, this study says, this study claims. The way they do this is they do it in a reverse process. They actually have a specific outcome that they want to spread to the media, to the mass media. They have the outcome. So they create a study that will produce such an outcome so that they can publish it and then run the study, and then it can become spread like this. And then unless you're like me and you start digging and digging and digging, you really never know what is fact or what is fiction, because one day we hear coconut oil is unhealthy, the next day we hear it's healthy. Today we're hearing that the American Heart Association absolutely advises against consumption. And this Frank Sachs individual says he has no idea why people thought it was healthy in the first place. It's almost 100% fat, and it's saturated fat. It has more saturated fat than lard. So I read this and I thought, okay, Frank Sachs, lead author on the report. So I did some digging and I thought, who is this Frank Sachs? Well, I found out. Dr. Sachs is professor of cardiovascular disease prevention, Department of Nutrition, Harvard School of Public Health. He is also professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School and a senior attending physician at Brigham and Women's Hospital. So he's a paid physician at a hospital. Okay, and then yada yada yada. Dr. Sachs is an active member and international committees and conferences in dietary drug treatments and nutrition health guidelines. He was the chair of the American Heart Association Nutrition Committee, which advises the AHA on nutrition policy. Bingo. So there's the nugget. I dug and I found the nugget. So he was the chair of the American Heart Association, which coincidentally, I think not, published this study today, vilifying coconut oil. And this is just, okay, as human beings, I think we want to be validated, right? I mean, I do. So when I know something, there's a tendency there. Let's put aside. Let's pretend I'm not a researcher. But I have a tendency maybe to seek out information that validates what I already know, right? We all do that because it makes us feel good. It makes us feel like we belong, and then it's validating what our knowledge that we already have, so that feels good. And I encourage you to work on practicing this digging method that I employ, because unless you want to live in that echo chamber that I mentioned before, where you're only being surrounded by facts that validate your opinion and your beliefs. This is what religious groups do. This is what political groups do. This is what fringe politics they do. And I don't want to get into all that, but the dangers of an echo chamber are real, because you're existing in this bubble that is devoid of any contradictory information. And that is dangerous, because we stop learning. And when we stop learning, what's the point? I'm a voracious reader. I'm curious, and I'm constantly hungry for information. So it's in my nature, and I'm a researcher, so it's in my nature to seek information wherever I can find it. And then when I find more, I dig deeper, and I dig deeper, and I dig and dig and dig. And I guess what bothered me a lot about this article that I read was that, so they're saying that coconut oil is really, really unhealthy. It's bad. It raises the LDL cholesterol. Well, in fact, that's only true if you are consuming refined carbohydrates. So in other words, the standard American diet. So this article is partially true, like the peephole metaphor I used earlier, peephole analogy. It's partially true, but they're leaving out some critical facts that may be of interest and of it's valuable information that they're leaving out here. What actually raises LDL cholesterol is not saturated fat, and it's not dietary cholesterol. It's refined carbohydrates, okay? Refined carbohydrates, cereal grains, cakes, cookies, pasta, breads, grains. These foods are the foods that raise LDL cholesterol and triglycerides, not dietary cholesterol, and not dietary fat like coconut oil, certainly not. And I'm just one person, but I have my blood test here, and triglyceride, well, I don't know if you can see, it's going to be backwards, but I'll read it to you. It says triglyceride, normal range is 30 to 149. Mine is 30. So I definitely don't have elevated cholesterol. That's beside the point, but just this article is leaving out some key facts, very key facts that it's bothersome, because in the absence of those refined carbohydrates that I spoke of, the cereal grains, the pastas, the breads, the cookies, the cakes, in absence of that, coconut oil is extraordinarily beneficial for the body. And it is totally left out of this article on purpose, because it doesn't support Frank Sachs' agenda. Frank Sachs, lead author on the report, and the former chair of the American Heart Association, who published this article today. So this string is connected to this string, and they're working symbiotically, kind of behind the scenes. And, I'd like to give people the benefit of the doubt, but it's very difficult when this, and this is just today, this happens every single day. Am I going to stop eating coconut oil? No. Because it's very good for you. It's good for me. And I don't eat refined carbohydrates. I don't eat cookies, cakes, breads, pastas. If I did, and then I ate coconut oil that has as much saturated fat or more than lard, then I think I would be in big trouble. But I don't eat those foods, and I eat coconut oil, and I'm perfectly healthy with a triglyceride level of 30. So the proof is in the pudding, as they say, but I'm just very disturbed by this in general because it just, I couldn't stop thinking about it actually because, you know, going back to what I said before, that we seek out information that validates our point of view. I get it, I understand that, but people need to take control. People need to be independent about their research, because unless you are really into spending hours and hours researching like I am, you're not going to do the digging and digging and digging, and you're not going to bother to see where this string attaches to this string. You're not going to find that out. And also, we're bombarded every day with so much information from the mass media that I get it. Who are we to believe? Dr. Sachs, me, Fox News? I mean, pick your poison, I guess. The point I just want to drive home, I guess, is just to be independent. And something I do that I would suggest doing is when I research something, I like to research what I believe I already know about it to, again, confirm my knowledge bank so far. And so that confirms it. So then I feel like, okay, that information is confirmed. And then I play devil's advocate, and I actually search for contradictory information or contradictory research about what I'm researching, because that information is useful. And then I do the digging. I find out who funded that research, who is the lead author of that research, what special interest groups are sponsoring that publication. And then it becomes, I get to see the bigger picture. And only by doing that do we really get to know the facts about whatever it is we're trying to learn about. And please don't accept this. Don't accept what I'm saying. Don't accept things on the surface level. Try and dig a little bit deeper, because if we stop learning and we put that wall up and say, okay, I already know that coconut oil is good for me, or I already know that coconut oil is bad for me. Book closed, that's done with, never to be revisited again. Well, no. What if there's new emerging information out? What if this information comes my way, like it did this morning, and my friend says, you might want to read this, and I looked at it and I thought, oh, that does sound like something I would want to read. You know, I, as a consumer of coconut oil and an advocate of coconut oil, is it bad? Is everything I thought incorrect? And oh no. It turns out that no, they're just creating their own data here. So they created this study. They have a certain outcome that they want to feed people. So they orchestrate a study to produce that outcome. And then they publish it like this. And then it gets on the Today Show and USA Today and the Huffington Post, and it gets on YouTube. And then everyone is talking about how coconut oil isn't good for you. No. And that's not exactly true. That's not the big picture. So I guess that's all I wanted to say today. I just really felt compelled, and I felt really disturbed by this article because, and again, not the article didn't disturb me. It's the idea of people living in these echo chambers and these, I think in Urban Dictionary they call it an intellectual ghetto, and it's a very crass way of putting it, but that's kind of what it is. We start only seeking out information that validates what we already know or what we believe to know, and that's a very dangerous place. Don't find yourself in that place, because we become very, very narrow-minded that way. Narrow-minded individuals, we have no room for growth. It breeds a bigger problem, I think, in that we close ourselves off to obtaining new knowledge. We close ourselves off to accepting or tolerating other people's opinions and other people's belief systems, and that creates many, many problems. So I just want to, what I'll leave you with is just, you know, take, you always hear people say it, but I would say it bears repeating. Take everything you read and everything you hear, everything you see, everything you consume in the mass media, take it with a grain of salt and be independent. Find your own knowledge. Establish your facts as facts only when you have looked at the bigger picture. Don't look at the people. Don't look through the people and then accept that as fact, or accept one person's or two people's opinions, or one study or two study. Don't accept that as fact and then spread that. You know, be open to learning and be open to maybe finding information that contradicts what you believe too. That's okay. We can change our minds, you know? We're growing, we're evolving. We're allowed to change our minds. We're allowed to welcome new information into our brains. That's all I want. That for myself and for people, I think we need to afford ourselves that and not just accept these mass produced studies as fact. It can be a very dangerous thing. So good luck and good day. Thank you for watching.